Today's video in 27.1 part 2, we're going to pick up where we left off in class. And today we're going to talk about how to write the equations of a circle. So we're actually starting the middle of our lesson on page 393. You need something to write with, and you might want a calculator to help you with some of the solving and simplifying. Okay. So we went up to number 5 in class, but I'm going to have us start here, okay, with question 7. And question 7 is going to, number 6, we're going to start with suppose the center of a windmill is not positioned at the origin of the plane, but at coordinates 2, 3. So there is our center of our circle. So let's just start by listing that. Now remember, we have our equation of a circle here, x minus h quantity squared plus y minus k quantity squared equal to r squared. So remember, our center is the point that we would call hk. Okay, and they're saying the center has 2, -3, and the circle contains the point 5, 1. So what we're going to do is start by kind of doing a lot of plug and chug here. We're going to start by kind of writing our equation with that center point. Okay, so that means our equation would be x minus 2 squared plus y minus -3 is going to turn to y plus 3 squared, okay, equal to r squared. Now, to write the equation of this circle, we eventually have to figure out what r squared is so we can know what we equal it to. So that's where this other point is going to come in. We're going to substitute this point in for x comma y, all right? So what should I do here? I'm going to take my circle formula, okay, and we're going to plug in our point for x and y, so it's going to become 5, okay, 5 minus 2 from our h value, plus our y value, so 1 minus our center, or in this case it was plus 3. I should do that in red to keep it matching. Okay, and this is how we're gonna be able to solve for r squared. So we just have to do our little simplifying here. 5 minus 2, that's 3. So that's gonna turn to 3 squared. Okay, plus 1 plus 3 is 4. So that's gonna give us 4 squared. Okay, so right now we have 3 squared, so that's 9, plus 4 squared, that's 16. So right now we get that r squared is 9 plus 16, that's 25. Okay, so we could solve this to get the radius, but honestly we don't need it because what our equation needs is r squared. So once we have r squared, we're kind of done. So what we're going to do is plug everything back in. X and y are back in our variables. We're going to put in our center point hk, but now we know what it's equal to. So our equation is going to be x minus 2 plus y plus 3 equal to r squared, which we just did all that solving to figure out that r squared was 25. So this is our equation of our circle that has the center point at 2, -3 and passes through the point 5, 1. So again, what you do is you kind of set up your general circle equation, take your center point and plug that in for hk, take your ordered pair that they give you, the other point, plug that in for x, y, and then do all your simplifying to get the r squared. Once you have r squared, you can go back in and write the equation. And again, when we write the equation, x and y stay back in there because those are your coordinates or your variables. So you want to keep those. Okay, so before I move on to the next type of problem, I'm going to have you guys try one that's just like this. So I'm going to jump to the check your understanding. So go 2 pages over here where you get to the check your understanding. We're just going to start right now with doing 11a. Okay, so 11a is a very similar problem. You have your center point at 3, 6, and it's passing through the point at 0, -2. Okay, so again, you're going to take your circle formula, plug in your center for hk, plug in the point for xy, solve for r squared, and then you can write the equation. So go ahead and try that one. Okay, here's the answer you should have gotten. So it's x minus 3 squared plus y minus 6 squared. There's your center point. Okay, 3, 6. And you should have got that r squared was 73. So let me show you my work for that. Here's what I got. So you plugged in the point for x and y, the blue. Okay, your hk is your red numbers here. So I simplified everything. And again, you're only really solving for r squared. So you don't have to worry about square rooting anything. Just solve for r squared. And that's what our formula uses. Okay. All right, I'm going to go back now and do the next type of problem that we have. Oops, I went too far. So here, go to question 8 for me. Now, question 8 says, consider the circle with diameter with endpoints at -1, 4, and 9, -2. They want us to start by finding the midpoint of our diameter. Now, remember, midpoint means you're averaging, okay, averaging your x values. So I'm going to take my two x numbers, -1 and 9, add them together, divide by 2. Then I'll do the same thing with the y's. I'll take my two y values, add them together, divide by 2. So if I do that, that's -1 plus 9, that would be 8. 8 over 2 is 4. Okay, now 4 plus a -2, that becomes 4 minus 2, so that's 2 over 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. Now, what information did this give us if we took the midpoint of our two diameter endpoints? Okay, well, this tells us our center point. So essentially, this is going to tell us our HK. Okay. Now, since we know our HK now, we can use one of the endpoints. It doesn't matter which one you want to use. Okay, but you can use one of the endpoints, plug it in, okay, and solve for your circle. Okay. So say I do, again, you just pick one and kind of roll with it. So say I pick 9, 2. That's the point I want to use. Okay, and I have my center point at 4, 1. I'm going to plug everything in and get my r squared value. So let's see, we take x, so 9, minus h squared, plus my y, so we're going to take y, minus my k value squared. That'll equal our r squared. Okay, well, 9 minus 4, that's 5. 5 squared is 25. Okay, -2 minus 1, that's -3. -3 squared is +9. So let's see what we get for r squared here. 25 plus 9, r squared would be 34. So if we were going to write the equation for our circle, then I would take x minus my center, so x minus 4 squared, plus y minus 1 squared equal to r squared, which we just found out was 34. And now we have the equation of that circle with those two endpoints that we know. Okay. Now, if you use the other endpoint, let's see. Okay, now they use that same one I did, but if you use the other endpoint, you should get the same answer. It shouldn't matter. Okay, you would still get the r squared to be 34, depending on which point you use. So if I picked 1, -4, the answer should still come out to be the exact same thing I got if I plugged in 9, -2. Okay, so again, once you find the midpoint, you have your center. Take your center then and one of the 2 points, it doesn't matter which one, pick one of them. Plug it into your circle equation to get r squared. Once you have r squared and your center, you can write the equation of that circle. Okay, so again, I'm going to skip ahead to 11, and you guys are going to try 11b now. Okay, so try 11b. So you have a diameter with endpoints 2, 5, and -10, 7. So again, start by finding the midpoint of those. So average your x's, average your y's. That'll tell you your center, and then you just pick one of the 2 points, whatever one you like better. So try 11b. Okay, here's what I got for the answer for 11b. So your center should be at -4, 6. So it's x plus 4 squared plus y minus 6 squared. And then if you plugged everything in correctly, you should have gotten that the r squared was 37. So let me show you my work for that one. Okay, so again, there's my midpoint formula to find the center. Okay, right there is my midpoint to find the center. So -4, 6 was my center. I picked the point 2, 5 because I don't like working with negatives as much. So I plugged in 2, 5. If you pick the other point, your work should look a little different, but in the end, you should have solved that r squared was 37. So again, once I have my center and my r, I plug it back into my general equation, keeping x and y in there for my variables. Okay, we just have one last type of example to cover. and it's kind of the tougher of the three. Okay, so let's go back to question 9. Question 9 says, follow the steps to write the equation of a circle that contains these 3 points. So step A, they want us to graph our 3 points. We're going to place our 3 points on the coordinate plane here. So -4, -1, 6, -1, and then 6, 5. Okay, so now we're going to graph chords A, B. I guess I should label my points, that helps us kind of visualize this. This is A, B, and then C. So they want us to graph these chords. So we have line AB, and then chord BC. BC. Okay, that line's not very straight. But here's the kind of the key point here, and it's this little math tip right here. Okay, which says that the perpendicular bisects of the chord of a circle intersect at the center. Now, if we remember anything from our last section, the perpendicular bisector will bisect the chord in the middle. So perpendicular, meaning it's going to go 90 degrees, the opposite way. Bisector meaning cutting in half. So look at the length of AB. If we count from A to B, okay, we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 boxes between A and B. So that means my perpendicular bisector has to be 5 in the middle. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that'd be here. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing with chord BC. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that means our perpendicular bisector would be at 1, 2, 3. Okay, so the center of our circle is going to be where those two perpendicular bisectors intersect. So it looks like we are at, let's see, 1, 2. So this one you have to do a little visualization to get your center point. You have to draw your 3 points, find where your perpendicular bisectors would be on those chords. Okay, that's your center. Once you have that, you can pick any of your 3 points. So say I pick 6, 5 because I don't like to work with negatives. That would be my XY. And then here's my HK. Okay, so I'm going to plug this in kind of quick just for the sake of time. We have X, so 6. 6 minus 1 squared plus 5 minus 2 squared is equal to R squared. Let's see, 6 minus 1, that's 5. 5 squared is 25. 5 minus 2 squared, well, 5 minus 2 is, let's see, 3. 3 squared is 9. So it looks like our R squared is at 34. Okay, so to write this equation of our circle here, I would have to take X minus 1, that's my center, 1, 2, plus Y minus 2 equal to R squared, which we just figured out was 34. Okay. So this one is the hardest one because you kind of have to do a lot of little prep work to kind of find that center point. But you just graph your 3 points. Think of those chords, okay? Find the midpoint of those because that's where you're going to draw your perpendicular bisector. So I'm going to have you guys try one last problem, 11C. It's going to be done the same exact way. And again, you could have picked point A or point B. I just personally like point C because there was no negatives. But it doesn't matter which point you pick. As long as you have 1 point in your center, you can find the R squared. Once you have all of that, you're going to plug it back in. Oops, I almost forgot my squares there. Into the circle formula, again, with X and Y as your variables. Okay, so one last one for you guys. Let's have you guys do 11C. So you have points -2, 5, -2, -3, and 2, -3. So you want to draw yourself kind of a little XY plane here on your graph. Use that graph paper. And if you plot those 3 points, I'll give you a second to do that. Okay. Now remember, in order to find Okay, our center point, if we plot these points, we find their perpendicular bisector of the chords. Again, if you drew chords here, chord here, and a chord here. Let's make those perpendicular bisectors. So again, bisector means it's going to cut each chord in half. So let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that means halfway would be 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So sorry about that. Just trying to, so let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's one perpendicular bisector. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4. My other one would be halfway. That didn't come out very nice. Let's try that one more time. Sorry about this. There you go. So where those two intersect should be your center point. So right here. Looks like our center point is at, now I know I drew some other black lines in there, so it makes it a little hard, but it looks like we are at, what, 0, 1? Okay. So if you plot your 3 points, find the perpendicular bisector between each chord. Where they intersect is your center point. Okay. Now again, these, if I delete them really quick, in case it was hard to see where my XY plane was, and kind of made it a little confusing with those extra lines. But now that you know your center point is at 0, 1, use any of the 3 points from the original problem, plug it in to find the equation. So finished 11C for me. Okay, here's what I got. Now, if you put x minus 0 squared, you're not technically wrong. You just don't need to do all that. Okay, but let me show you my work. So I picked the point 2, -3. It's just the one I liked. So I substituted everything in and got that r squared was 20. So there's my equation. Okay. So now you can see kind of all 3 types of questions you might have. So if they give you the center and 1 point, you don't have to do too much extra work. Just substitute everything in, solve for r squared, and then go back and write your formula. If you're given a diameter, then you have to find the midpoint first to get the center, then use your center and one of the other 2 points, plug it in, get r squared, write your formula. Now the hardest one is if you're given 3 points. So the easiest way to do it is just to draw it out on a graph, get those perpendicular bisectors to find your center, and again, once you have your center, pick one of the 3 points. Okay, we'll practice this more tomorrow in class.